This is episode 51, and in today's episode, I'm sharing the audio from a video I posted on my YouTube channel entitled Emotional Intelligence and Effective Communication in Marriage. You'll hear how important emotional intelligence is for your marriage. Now, there might be references made to the video, and I want to give you a heads up because it was done for my YouTube channel. But I think you'll get incredible value from it, as others are who are now watching the video on my YouTube channel. So let's get the show started.
Hello and welcome to the Happier Marriage Podcast, a podcast for spouses longing to have a happier marriage so they can feel more connected, desired and supported. Now, to start the show, here is your host and Sherpa, licensed marriage and family therapist and certified relationship coach, Kingsley Grant.
So, without further ado, let's dive into the recording. In this video, I want to show you the importance of being emotionally intelligent and having good communication skills to confidently navigate tricky conversations. Have you ever had one of those, what you call a tricky conversation? But before I get there, I want to ask you or have you think about three questions. As we go into this video, I want you to be thinking about these three questions. And the first question is this: have you ever found yourself bottling up your emotions or expecting your partner to read your mind? Second question: can you recall a time when you and your spouse engaged in a heated argument and it escalated rather than resolve the issue? Third question that I want to be thinking about is, do you currently find yourself avoiding or dancing around difficult conversations with your spouse? Now, those three questions I want to use to set the stage for this conversation today about emotional intelligence and better communication skills. Now, we all know that marriage comes with its fair share of challenges. But by honing, I believe, your emotional intelligence and communication skills, I believe that you can deepen your connection. I believe that you can honor God. I believe that you can ultimately have a happier and more fulfilling marriage. And I believe that's what you're here for. That's what you want. Now, you might be wondering, why do I need emotional intelligence? Why is that important in my marriage, in my relationship with my spouse? Can I just rely on effective communication or good communication skills? Well, I want to address possibly other things that may be going on in your mind as you hear me talk about this topic of emotional intelligence. And I want to share with you in a few moments what that is. I give you a definition that two authors have written in their book on emotional intelligence, but I also want to give you my definition of what I have put together as my understanding of emotional intelligence, especially in your relationship. But you might be thinking right now that, Kingsley, why bother? Why even want to have emotional intelligence to be a part of the equation when it comes to my marriage? Well, you might be thinking that communication is enough, right? Why should I focus then on emotional intelligence in addition to what I already am focusing on? Why is that so important? And so you might be thinking that because what happened is you might not fully understand what emotional intelligence is and the importance of that. And I will share with you in a few moments why I think I'm saying what it is I'm saying and why I hope you agree with me once I get into a deep dive about this topic of emotional intelligence and better communication skills. So you might be having this pushback thought process, I call them objections, to the idea that this would work. This would make your marriage better. This would make a difference in your relationship. The second thing you might be thinking is, this sounds emotional intelligence sounds so complicated. And because of that, you're asking, can I really learn and apply that in my marriage? It just sounds so much. And I don't know if I have the time or the energy or the ability to learn all of that and implement that in my relationship. Well, I'm going to help you with that in a few moments. Or the third thing you might be thinking as a third objection is, what if my partner doesn't have emotional intelligence? Then if he or she doesn't have emotional intelligence, how can I then navigate conversations on my own if I'm more emotionally intelligent than my partner? Now, if you have ever had any of these thoughts about what I've just shared, that isn't communication enough, why should I focus on emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence sounds so complicated. I can't really, can I really learn and apply it in my marriage? Or thirdly, what if my partner doesn't have emotional intelligence? How can I navigate conversations? Has that ever crossed your mind? Or is that crossing your mind even right now as I talk about this topic, while I was going through discussing earlier about the direction we're going to take in this video? Now, while effective communication is critical or is crucial, I believe that emotional intelligence is that step up. Why? Because it enhances your ability to understand and manage emotions. It allows you to empathize with your spouse, and it allows you to create a safe space for open dialogue. That is what emotional intelligence brings to the equation, why it layers that, where it makes communication more effective. Now, I like the definition of emotional intelligence that authors Dr. Travis Bradbury and Jean, depending how you pronounce it, Jean, Jean Breves, they're co-authors of Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And here's how they define emotional intelligence. They define it as your ability to recognize and understand emotions and your skill at using this awareness to manage yourself and your relationship with others. Now, I know that's a mouthful. Let me just kind of say it one more time. They say emotional intelligence in their book is your ability to recognize and understand emotions and your skill at using this awareness to manage yourself and your relationship with others. That's their definition of emotional intelligence. Now, as you may know or may not know, I wrote a book that was called The Emotelligent Leader, Succeed Where Others Have Failed and Become the Leader Everyone Loves and Wants to Follow. I wrote that book about 2 years ago, and in that book, I put this definition. This is where my definition of emotional intelligence comes from. I say it is the ability to make healthy choices and get better results by managing your thoughts and emotions in a positive and healthy way. Okay? So the ability to make healthy choices and get better results by managing your thoughts and emotions in a positive and healthy way. That's the definition I have come up with as to what I believe emotional intelligence, I call it emotelligence, but emotional intelligence is all about.
So, the big question is this. How is it possible that you have a happier marriage when you feel like you've tried everything? Your spouse isn't making an effort. You're exhausted. You feel like giving up. Or there's so much hurt that's taken place between you and your spouse. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers.
Why might you want to take the lead in practicing emotional intelligence and communication skills, or more empathic, I call it empathic communication skills, or empathic communication. And some people will say effective, and I don't want to get into that, the difference I have created, but there is a difference. I'll just say it this way, that I believe effective communication is the painting, and empathic communication is a frame around the painting. So it encompasses effective communication, but a little bit more than just that. So here are three reasons why I believe, or three benefits what I believe that you may want to prioritize practicing emotional intelligence and communication skills. So prioritize that effective communication skills within your marriage, even when you have doubts, even when you're having doubts, like I mentioned before. And the first benefit is this, that it allows you to improve understanding of your emotions. So it improves the understanding of your emotions. Emotional intelligence helps you to better understand your own emotions and those of your spouse. It allows you to have a clearer and more compassionate and more effective communication. See, a lot of people don't even know what they're feeling at times. And maybe that's you. Here's what I find people will say. For example, they make a statement like this: I feel like you don't understand me, or I feel like you're not listening to me. And they're thinking they're describing their feelings. And I would tell couples many times, you're not describing your feelings. You're describing how you are thinking. That is your thoughts. That is your opinion. And so people, they kind of confuse feelings because they use a feelings word. They think they're describing their feelings. And many people, according to most research, 67% of people do not know how to describe their emotions. And that's why emotional intelligence is so important, because when you're just feeling something, you want your spouse to know what it is you're feeling and not so much what you're thinking. They pretty much have heard you in what you have thought about certain things over and over again. What they're looking for is, so what feelings come as a result of that? And people, again, like I said, they're confused. But one of the benefits of having emotional intelligence to be a part of this equation is that it's going to improve your understanding of your emotions. And when you're able to understand your emotions and you're self-aware, it allows you to understand the emotions of your spouse as well. The second benefit is it's going to increase your conflict resolution skills. It's going to allow you to have a better conflict resolution skills. So when you develop emotional intelligence, it's going to allow you to know how to navigate conflicts with greater empathy, and allows you to find solutions or resolutions that not only allow you to have a better relationship and get you, have you to honor your spouse, but it also allows you to honor God. So emotional intelligence allows you to connect with your spouse, but also to connect with God at a different level. So it's very, very important. And the third benefit is it strengthens and deepens your connection. It strengthens and deepens your connections. So what emotional intelligence does, it kind of it creates opportunity for deeper connection, emotional connection, and intimacy building, right, in your relationship. It allows you to build a foundation for a happier marriage. And that's what we're after, right? That's what we're after. So these are three benefits. Benefit number one, again, it improves understanding of your emotions. Benefit number two, it increases conflict resolution skills. And number three, it strengthens and deepens your connection. These are the benefits that you're going to have when you're able to become better, more emotionally intelligent, and better at communication, to develop a better communication skills in your life. And by the way, if you'd also like to get an instant feedback on the state of your marriage and what to do about it, then I want you to take the Happier Marriage Assessment quiz. I cannot tell you how important that is, because when you take the quiz, it's going to allow you to have a numeric score, and this quiz can be done within 90 seconds. I mean, it doesn't take a long time. Within 90 seconds, you can take this quiz, know what the score is. But here's what's important: is not just to know what the score is, but how to interpret the score. How do you interpret the score? What does that mean? You will get a PDF that you can download, and it will tell you about what your score means. So let me encourage you to take your Happier Marriage assessment quiz. It's free, and you can have that at happiermarriagesecrets.com/quiz, and you're able to access it right there, happiermarriagesecrets.com/quiz. Now, how do you practice emotional intelligence, and how do you navigate tricky conversations, right? So before I share with you how to do that, how to implement that, I want to share with you a story of Sarah and John, because it will help us understand when I share with you how to implement what Sarah and John could do and could have done differently in their relationship. And maybe as I tell you the story about Sarah and John, remember, I want you to think about your own relationship, your own marriage. And I want you to see if you can see yourself in this story of Sarah and John, which is a fictional characters. I don't have anyone in my mind. I've made this story up, and I want to keep on reintroducing you to Sarah and John, or introduce you to Sarah and John, because they are the fictitious character that every time I do a podcast, you're going to hear me share a story about them. So Sarah and John found themselves trapped in a web of misunderstandings and unspoken emotions. Sounds familiar? Been there, right? So they found themselves kind of trapped in this web of misunderstandings and unspoken emotions. And their conversations normally turn into battlegrounds filled with resentment and frustration. Sounds familiar? Been there? Done that? Okay. And wore the t-shirt I'm hearing you say, right? So Sarah would often bottle up her feelings and expect John to read her mind. Well, John would withdraw when that happens and shut down emotionally. So their attempts to communicate, what happened is that they only fueled the fire, because their words became weapons rather than bridges. Their words became daggers rather than bridges of understanding. So the emotional gap or chasm that they have now between them has only grown wider, and their connection faded into the background, leaving them feeling isolated and alone with their own marriage. Again, does that sound familiar? Is that something that you can relate to? Do you see that happen in your relationship as well? Now, as time went by, Sarah and John, they struggled to express their needs, and they struggled to also listen to each other, as you can imagine at this point. And so what happened, they began to dance around their issues, avoiding the uncomfortable conversations that really held the potential for growing their relationship and healing their relationship. But they avoided that. They danced around those things. But that is what healing and growth reside, but they just didn't want to. They avoided those things. And so what happened over time, the lack of emotional intelligence and communication skills, it just left them stuck in this cycle of, I mentioned earlier, the miscommunication, unresolved conflict, and their marriage was left hanging in the balance. That's Sarah and John's story as of this point in this episode and in this video. Now, have you ever found yourself like Sarah and John, bottling up your emotions? Can you recall a time when your spouse and you engaged in a heated argument that escalated rather than resolve the issues? Do you find yourself dancing around or avoiding issues because you just don't want to fight? You just don't want to have more conflict. But what if I told you that inside that conversation that you're avoiding and dancing around, inside there holds the key to more deeper connection and a better understanding? But that's what you're avoiding, possibly in your relationship, like Sarah and John is in their relationship. Now, I want to share with you then how Sarah and John could implement, and how you also could implement 3, I believe, unique steps that would help them around emotional intelligence and communication, that would help them navigate their tricky conversations and that they were now experiencing, and how you could too as well. So the first thing I would say to Sarah and John, and I would say to you, that you want to cultivate self-awareness. This is very important. This is huge. Self-awareness is so key to this whole journey of emotional intelligence. Now, what does that mean? So it simply means that you're going to take time to reflect on your own emotions, get in touch with your feelings. What are your feelings? What triggers you? What are the triggers that you find more often than not being repeated in your life? And you're also going to take time to look at your communication patterns, how you react or respond to your spouse. And so this is an idea of cultivating self-awareness. The more you're able to do this, the better you become at being self-aware, the better you're going to be able to manage your emotions and the emotions of your spouse. That is what emotional intelligence is all about, in a brief, quick, summarized, condensed way. So it's self-awareness and managing or regulating your emotions and the emotions of your spouse. Secondly, how can Sarah and John, how could they practice emotional intelligence and save themselves some of the pain that they're experiencing, and maybe you can also yourself? And the second thing I want to suggest is pay attention to non-verbal cues. Pay attention. Now, I could say a lot about this, because sometimes what happens is people label what they see as nonverbal, and their brain is scanning and they're simply saying, you're mad. Why are you so sad? Why are you so upset? Because they see this nonverbal and they're labeling that, and their spouse will say, I'm not mad. I'm not upset. Do you want me to show you what mad or upset is, right? Because what happened when paying attention to nonverbals is not to judge it, is not to critique it, is to see what are you seeing, and the facial expression of your spouse, the body language, where the hand is doing, where the hand is at, right? You're looking for these cues so that you can be able to at least guess or gauge what the temperature is like in your relationship, and better respond to whatever you're seeing or experiencing. So pay attention to nonverbal cues. And I think Sarah and John would do better if they were able to read each other, pay attention to the cues, not to judge them, not to critique them, but to simply observe them, and then share with their spouse what it is they've observed and have noticed, right? So that's why you want to pay attention to nonverbal cues. And the third thing is seek biblical guidance. Seek biblical guidance, because what happened is the Bible is filled with how to behave in many situations, right? So you're going to seek wisdom from the Bible on how to communicate with your spouse. What I find sometimes why someone may not want to work on emotional intelligence and effective communication is because they're thinking their spouse isn't worth it, or they don't think it's going to make a difference, or they're thinking they've tried everything and it hasn't worked. But the Bible talks about this idea of being slow to speak. That is emotional intelligence. The Bible speaks about bringing every thought into captivity. That's emotional intelligence behavior. The Bible speaks about being patient and kind, right? That is part of emotional intelligence. So when you're drawing inspiration from the Bible, it's going to emphasize these things that if you follow them, it would make your relationship a whole lot better. The Bible even speaks about this idea. It's called the fruit of the Spirit. So you're going to see these fruit in your life, when you're practicing love and kindness and gentleness and patience and long-suffering. These are the things that will help your relationship. And the Bible speaks about those things. So when you're able to practice emotional intelligence and also practice effective communication and do it the right way, especially the biblical way, right? You're going to see your relationship transform. because it's hard for your spouse to behave otherwise when you are behaving in this manner. So in summary, I want to share with you then why emotional intelligence and effective communication are essential tools for navigating what we call tricky conversations in your marriage. Now, it allows you to, as I mentioned before, it allows you to address objections, explore the benefits, gain insights. So when we are able to look at Sarah and John's story, for example, we can see what they could have done differently, as I've just shared with you. So when you're practicing emotional intelligence, you're going to be able to transform your relationship in the way that it ought to be and have a better relationship. So remember now, it's a journey, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's a journey that requires patience, and it requires more patience, and it requires practice. But here's what happened. The rewards are just great. It's out of this world. Deeper understanding, better conflict resolution skills, and strengthening of your connection, deeper connection with your spouse. My question to you is that worth it? How much do you want a better relationship? And I believe you're here and listening because you want that. So I want to encourage you to let us commit to developing our emotional intelligence and communication skills. Let us commit to honor God in our marriages and ultimately creating a happier and more fulfilling relationship with our beloved spouse, our husband or our wife, right? So I want to encourage you to do that because I believe it will make your relationship a whole lot better. And there you have it, my friend. I hope this podcast delivered as was promised at the very beginning. Now, let me suggest that you watch the video episode on my YouTube channel at kingsleygrant.com/YouTube. kingsleygrant.com/YouTube. You'll have access to the channel. You can binge watch all that's there. There's a lot of other topics there. And you can just sit back and make sure that when you go there, you subscribe to the channel. That's so important. Subscribe to the channel so that you can get the latest updates when it's posted, when I post new videos there as well. And also, if you want to be notified, just click the notification bell so you'll be notified every time a new episode or a new video is posted on my channel. Now, I've also created a free Facebook group for spouses like you that you can request to join at facebook.com/connectstrong. One word, facebook.com/connectstrong. The links that you are hearing will all be in the show notes that follows this podcast. With that said, my friend, let's make marriages happier again.
We've come to the end of another exciting show, and if you enjoyed this podcast, 1. Make sure you give this show a rating and review. 2. Subscribe to the show to get all new releases. And 3. Get your complimentary copy of the 5 Secrets to a Happier Marriage ebook at kingsleygrant.com/HMS ebook. Again, it's kingsleygrant.com/HMS ebook. See the link in the show notes. Do it today. Don't delay. Thanks so much for listening, and make sure you tell one other spouse about this show, or better yet, share it with them. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May he turn his face toward you and give you his peace, both now and forever.